And welcome to another episode of Stuck in My Mind podcast. I am your host, Wize. And my next guest is a creator and entrepreneur focused on mindset, discipline, and building real momentum. He works on helping people show up consistently, cut through distraction, and take intentional steps towards the life they want to build. Today we're talking about growth, consistency, and doing the work when no one's watching. Welcome to the show, Jesse P. Gilmore.
Hey, thanks for having me, Wize. I'm super excited for our conversation
Oh,
today.
man, appreciate you stopping by, man. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to
hmm
actually be a guest. So, what first pushed you to start working on yourself more intentionally?
hmm Yeah, back in about 2018, I joined a group called Wake Up Warrior, and it kind of shook me at the core. At the time, I was in the middle of corporate America, in between my third and fourth business. My first three of them were based around kind of like my skills. So if I didn't work didn't get done, didn't really understand that fancy word called single points of failure or processes or systems. And so when I was in corporate America, I felt as though I was kind of giving up my soul for money. And I got to a certain place where I joined Wake Up Warrior. And in that 30-day challenge, I started understanding a lot more about like who I am and what my unique ability is, and kind of like where I should be, how I should create a life by design. And it wasn't until the things I was learning in corporate led towards a business acquisition that I started rethinking, am I going to be an employee or an entrepreneur? And when I started going into niche and control, the cool thing was it happened at a time where everybody was focused on COVID, and I was focused on launching a new business. And at that time, I started focusing a lot more on how do I show up in each one of the categories of life. My first businesses kind of made the business be a monster, took more than what it gave me. And I wanted to do something different because I had a wife and had some kids in the mix, which is a little different in the fourth business as opposed to the first. And so I needed to focus on having things in the right order, body, then being, then balance, then business. And I think that that was the start of what has now become something that I teach a lot.
So, you talk about mind, body. Like, how is it that you're able to focus on each? Because that's something a lot of us struggle with, right? Trying to
Mhm.
balance all those different categories. What is something you do to kind of like helps you along the way of balancing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just having things very manageable and consistent. So, for an example, this morning when I woke up before my kids. I have three kids, an adult and a wife and a puppy. So if I'm waking up to them, then I'm already behind. So I wake up a little bit earlier. And what I'll do is I'll set Brain FM, listen to a 10-minute meditation, go into a breathing meditation. And then at the end of that, then I go into a form of journaling called stacking. And I'll spend a lot of time kind of just emptying my cup, so that way I can get some insights. And then from there, then I worked out. So one of the first things as a daily habit is just did you sweat today? Yes or no? You could even like gamify it if you really wanted to. Just like, did I journal? Did I meditate? Did I, get a sweat on? And the ability of putting those like little daily deposits in each one of the categories allows a time where if you have to take a withdrawal, kind of like if you're putting a deposit into a bank, the bank of the body and the bank of spirituality, the bank of, the family and bank of business. And then if you need to take a withdrawal, you have something in the bank. And so I have focused a lot more on those daily habits. Each one of the categories. For the balance side, I spend quality time with my wife and kids, or I'll write them notes. And then on the business side, I'll take whatever I'm kind of like weakest in. Or what I want to focus on, and then I do a discover and declare. So right now, I'm kind of fixing or working on my messaging and positioning for niche and control, and so I'm going through a course. And so what I'll do is I'll go through the course, and then once I have an aha moment, I'll stop and I'll capture it. What was the aha moment? Why was it important? What's the lesson? How do I apply it in the next 48 hours? That like single daily habit in each one of the categories I've been doing since 2018. And it really kind of shapes the way that I look at business, the way I look at things, so that I can have a balance and rise each one of the categories without sacrificing other categories for the business to grow.
Absolutely. So what did you have to unlearn about success early on?
I love this question. Yeah, so my first businesses, as I talked about, was it was all based around my skills. And it was because everything that was in the market at the time, or that I learned from other business owners, was all based around if you just work really hard, eventually you'll not have to work hard. And you just hustle to the max. And right now, if you look at Instagram or any of those like social platforms, you'll see that everybody's just like hustle. Like that's like the thing. You just gotta
Yeah.
outwork everybody, and everybody's like glorifying Alex Ramosi as some icon that they need to follow when that doesn't actually work. And the hustle culture was something I had to unlearn, and I had to realize that that balance is actually more important for the majority of people. Actually, the more that I find that people that I work with might be having the 60 or 80 hour weeks, and they're getting burnt out from it. And then I'm like, oh, you just got to minimize the amount of time you're putting towards the business and start, putting it in elsewhere. And it's amazing how impactful that it can actually be. And so the hustle culture is something that's like, the us versus them. I'm throwing stones at the hustle culture because I'm just like sick of it. I'm like, I think it's the loudest. That's the reason why people hear it, but it's like definitely something I got to unlearn.
Oh, but no, you know what? The hustle culture, yeah, is great, but you also have to smarten up, right? Like you have to, like you said, you have to eventually not burn yourself out.
Hmm.
And if you're gonna continue to grind, but not take time to recharge yourself, like what good is it at the end of the day if you're burnt out? So
Hmm.
yeah, it's great to be a hustler, grind, but eventually you have to smarten up, right? And look at it and be like, okay, how can I still grind but not overwork myself and still get maximum value?
I think one thing I want to point out, the word grind is used typically when someone is putting in a lot of hours for a certain type of outcome, right?
Yeah.
And the problem with it is actually more psychological. People get used to working 60, 80 hour weeks or so. And a lot of times when you don't have boundaries, so I'll take a client, Mike, as an example, one of our case studies. And when I first talked with him, I was like, what's going on in the business? And he's like, oh, I'm just working all the time, and the business is kind of stagnant right now. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, how many hours are you working right now? And he's like, oh, 12 to 14 hour days, 6 or 7 days a week. And I was like, holy shit. And I was like, hold on, what's going on? And he's like, yeah, this is what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And I go, okay, well, why did you start the business in the first place? And he's like, oh, I wanted to spend more time with my kids. And I almost started crying because I was like, oh my gosh, like how far away from your original vision are you right now based around how it is? And so what I did with him was a time log. It's like pulling teeth for a lot of people, but it's every half an hour for 7 days. We just started logging his time, both personal and professional, in as much detail as possible. And once the time log came out, it's like you have raw data that you can work with. And we went through a very systematic way of just eliminating what he can eliminate, automating what shouldn't be done by a human, right? And then delegating, and then time blocking. And what happened was he went from 80 hours to 60 hours to 40 hours to 32. And once he was able to carve out 8 to 10 hours per week to work on the business, and he had the weekends free, he quadrupled his business, spent more time with kids, and the business grew. And it's amazing how the hustle culture is just like, I wouldn't use the word grind. And actually, if you are grinding, I would look at the architecture by which the business is set up, because the business should always serve you. And if it's not, something's fundamentally wrong. Now, that is for people after a proof of concept stage. During a proof of concept stage, you do have to grind. You have to get the first 5 paying clients. You have to get the case studies and do whatever it takes for that. But you get to a certain point where eventually what you're delivering to clients can become predictable, can become systematic, can become consistent. if you build the systems. And that's what I was missing in my previous businesses. So I didn't want to go on such a huge rant, but you used the word grind, and I immediately was like, hold on, let's dive deeper into that, because I think there is respect for people that go all in to a certain degree, but it should not. The business does not need to make you sacrifice everything in your world in order for it to actually grow. And actually, the business wants you just to remove the things that are holding it back from expansion, and it naturally starts doing it.
Excuse me. So why do so many people struggle with follow through?
I think people miss accountability, and there's so much kind of like the grass is greener kind of thing, like the shiny object syndrome, especially during AI times, where everything is like a shiny object. Following through really comes from inner certainty that is needed, and then accountability. The actual, like, I say I'm going to do something and then I do it. The actual self-integrity is the number one skill that will separate people that win and people that don't. It's like, if you say you're going to do something, do it. If you are not sure that you're going to actually do something, don't say that you're going to. That self-integrity, if you can understand that if the game that you're playing is truth, and you're after self-integrity, and all you do is you just focus a lot more on what you say you're going to do, and you do it, something most magical actually happens. If you can't do it with yourself, find a coach. I got a lot of benefit from one-on-one coaching, but other people get a lot of benefit from group coaching, but no matter what, I think somebody always needs somebody in their corner, and a co-founder of a business is a lot different than like a coach. So each one of them is kind of a little bit different, but I think that people just naturally need something small that they can do on a daily basis that gets them into the habit. And you can always expand, what that scope of that thing is once you get the consistency.
Sorry. So what role does discipline play when motivation runs out for some of your clients?
So to answer that question, I think there's a big difference between motivation, which seems very external and like kind of fleeting, as opposed to inspiration. So for anybody that is feeling like they need motivation in order for them to do something, I would look a lot deeper and try to figure out a very strong why. Strong why of why are you in the business in the first place, similar to what we just talked about with Mike, because the why and having that kind of calling or that pulling towards something a lot bigger than yourself is actually the thing that you need more than like some pep talk. What I don't want is like someone to listen to me and Wize talking and then go, I'm just fired up, because that's just going to be based around whatever we talked about. If what we talk about inspires you to start looking deeper and getting to understand what is that actual why, what is the thing that I'm being pulled towards, some of the clients that I work with, we talk about future selves, like versions of ourselves that, at the end of our life, what would we want to be remembered for? And like, what are we trying to accomplish? Because that is strong enough to pull you through any changes that are actually needed. And so my suggestion is if you feel like you need motivation, focus on inspiration. And if you are lacking in kind of like daily discipline, just understand that maybe you need to get more into the fundamentals and get into like a strong grounding of where am I going? Who am I? Where am I going? And like, if right now, if everything that has led towards this moment got me here, it's not going to get me there. So what do I need to do right now that kind of aligns with where I'm going, and make just small changes? Don't do it all at once. Everybody knows that New Year's resolutions don't work. It has more to do with just these little tiny tweaks. Just focus on the small changes with a big impact.
Yeah, actually, the guest I was speaking to yesterday, we were talking about that, and he's like, how do you eat an elephant, right? And it's one bite at a time. And so that's kind of how I've been doing with the podcast. It was like I didn't know everything about podcasting, but the more I did it, the more I improved.
Mhm.
Then I was like, all right, since I'm going to do this, then I'm going to invest in it. I'm going to buy me a quality mic. I'm going to learn about certain platforms. I'm going to invest in now EV Mux, but before it was StreamYard
Mhm.
and 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 just like just kind of just take it one step at a time. Like I didn't rush to do all. It's just like all right, I'm gonna focus on learning about what an RSS feed was, or it was just me just wanting to grow and develop. So I just took my
Mhm.
time and just kind of learned the process and to
Mhm.
where now I'm almost 6 years in.
Yeah. Congratulations. That's awesome, dude. Yeah, there's a model that's pretty beneficial for consistency that it keeps on coming up as you're talking. It's called CQCQ. Just think about it like a stepping ladder. The bottom C is called consistency. And when you have consistency, it naturally leads towards quality, the quality of what you're doing because you got enough practice. And then with the quality leads to confidence, confidence in what you're doing, confidence in what you're producing, right? And that leads towards quantity.
Yeah.
And it always steps in anytime that someone's trying to figure out a habit, and they're like, I got the reps in, but something's wrong. Okay, focus on quality. Or I haven't got the reps in, just focus on consistency. Don't worry about all the other stuff. It kind of gives you a model of what to focus on.
Oh, and yeah, and it wasn't until I got consistent, right? Like until I really, because when I first started, of course, it took me a month to release between episodes, and then the more I just started doing it, it became weekly. To now
Mm-hmm.
where I do 3 shows a week, and it was like, all right, here we go. And
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't until I really kind of just set the s- the structure and the schedule and the
Mm-hmm.
system that things really started really going smoother. And then of course on occasion you have your hiccups, you have delays, you have technical difficulties, but
Mm-hmm.
it just you just me doing it now almost 6 years, I kind of adapt. I kind of adapt to it and just like, all right, let's just
Mm-hmm.
gotta just be flexible and just switch it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a something that's really helpful. So when you are doing the consistency and something comes up, always break it down into two things: short-term containment, which means what do you do in that scenario to make it better for whatever that is, and
Yeah,
then also start thinking about a long-term prevention. So if what would I need to do in the future that would make it so this one problem that I just dealt with no longer is a problem, and that is a system improvement. And if you can combine what me and Wize are talking about into two different things where you're just consistent and then you have like kind of like a troubleshooting mechanism, that is like something so embedded into entrepreneurial, like how entrepreneurs should be thinking if they're trying to grow a business. And just stay consistent, CQCQ, and then short-term containments and long-term preventions naturally starts building.
awesome. So this is because you mentioned resolutions, New Year's resolutions. Yeah, they don't work. So
Mhm.
how does someone build habits or routines? Because okay, the question should be, what habits or routines have made the biggest difference for you, and how can someone kind of like start building those kind of habits where that they're in this and struck with things that they're struggling with.
Sure. I think the most important habit for me, at least, is the meditation and journaling that I was talking about.
Mm.
And the reason being is that there's so many things that are going on in my world, right? I'm a husband, I'm a father, I have a puppy, right? And I also have my own life, and then the business. And a lot of times, if I am not taking time for myself to figure out exactly what my intention is, what am I trying to accomplish, processing all of the things that happen in a single day, like this is my ninth meeting today, and like and if I don't have that time where I can process it, I start to feel as though it's like life by default. like whatever's happening in my world, I don't have control over or whatever. And the journaling allows me to continue to align myself to whatever I feel is most important. So that's on a daily basis. On a weekly, actually, in addition to that, at the end of the day, I do a thing called Plan Tomorrow Today, which is just at the way end, top 3 accomplishments of today, write them all out, top 3 accomplishments possibly of tomorrow. And what it does is just kind of like synthesizes everything so I can sleep better at night when I wake up, and then I do the meditation. And that's on like a daily basis. On a weekly, I'll start looking back on the week and what are the top accomplishments for the week. What are some of the things that I'm learning, and then what's my focus for the week. And I do that on a weekly basis, and then I communicate to my team the day afterwards. These things from like an entrepreneurial side are very helpful, but they're also really helpful to help keep me away from keep me away from anything that would actually distract me from whatever I'm focused on. So if how to apply this to the listener, if you have some type of issue, like you're trying to do something and for some reason it's just not working. So let's just take an example. Let's just say you want to focus on deep work, or work that kind of is most fulfilling, most, your unique ability, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, you just get distracted. You never have time for it, right? And the actual issue is based around social media scrolling. Okay, so if you boil it all down, that's the single issue. So then you realize through journaling that you go, hey, this thing keeps on just coming up. What can I do to remove it? If you starve distractions, it's like one of the most beautiful things that happens is just like your environment becomes more supportive of you and like kind of where you're going. So what I would suggest is you identify what are you trying to accomplish? What is the habit you're trying to learn? And then what is that obstacle that keeps on coming in the way? And if journaling is a way of capturing what happened in the day, you can use these different kind of tools and resources. But the main outcome that you're going after is that I spend my deep work time on the most important things, and I don't get distracted by everything else. And I've identified that social media is the issue. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go into Chrome extensions and remove like the ability of actually accessing certain social media, or I'll delete it from my phone. These kinds of things starve the distraction so you can focus on it. But that's a good step.
Yeah, you just kind of answer one of my questions when you said, how do you cut through the distractions? And you're like, yeah, delete them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you think about that time log, I would highly suggest, I know it's like scratching your nails on a chalkboard for a lot of people to actually just sit down and go, what am I doing every half an hour for 7 days? But it is so profound. Like you can look at like, what is a distraction that's keeping me away? What habits are my like sleeping habits? Like anything, you learn it from that raw data. And that raw data, it only takes 1 week to like drastically change and give you enough awareness to understand what are those distractions. And then you can systematically go, in the next week, I'm just going to remove this. I'm going to categorize it this way. I'm going to work on these certain things. It just makes it so much easier. And by the end of the day, you have less decision fatigue. I think all of us are just pulled in a lot of different directions. And the best thing you can do is just have laser focus.
Absolutely. So what's one mindset shift that helped you along your way?
Not having to be perfect.
That's a
Yeah,
good
I
one.
think, yeah, yeah, I think we have these social comparisons that happen naturally. I don't know why I'm so focused on social media right now and just bashing it, but so be it. We'll just roll with it, Wize. Yeah. So the social comparisons that happen when you see win after win after win after win in social media feed, and you're just going, oh, maybe I'm not actually as good as I think I am.
Yeah.
That kind of like issue comes from like too much social media, and I think that we just seem. Now I just went into a rabbit hole. Can you remind me what the question was, just to make sure I can bring it back to that?
What was it? What was it? Oh, what was one mindset shift that helped you level up?
Yeah, and then it was the perfectionism thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, typically what we hold ourselves to such a high standard that a lot of times we won't even actually look at the gains that we have, like the wins, and that we actually have had progress, and we always look at this gap, like where we are and where we want to be. And a lot of times, if you just stare at the gap and you have to be quote unquote perfect, like as if Wize, if you were going to launch a podcast and you had to know all the things you know now before you even started, right? Like it's like not
Of
even
course.
possible. Yeah. So letting go of that perfectionism and understanding that it comes to delegation, it comes to getting started, it comes to having an idea and starting to act on it. I think that in my previous businesses, my first business, it took 3 years, sorry to say, to get a proof of concept out, which is crazy. That is way too long. And anybody that's listening to this that has gone through a long proof of concept for something where you're not taking anything to the market for too long, you start losing kind of like the thing. And that was because we wanted it perfect. We wanted it to be just like massive and awesome and whatever. And it was, but if I would have taken it to the market and gotten feedback faster, would have been a lot better. But also that perfectionism, letting go of the perfectionism means that I can keep on moving and in motion. Like I have a calling we talked about callings, the strong why. I have a calling to impact 1 million entrepreneurs. That's why I'm on podcasts. That's why I'm setting up the systems. That's why I'm doing all the things. And it's pulling me through all of the things that are actually needed. And if I was waiting for perfectionism to do it, it would just hold me back. And that was one of the biggest shifts that I made in my fourth business that I wish I would have known in my first three.
Yeah. No. Because even it was funny because we was talking before about when I had a guest on and they were telling me about doing video and everything. And one of the reasons was, oh, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to be behind the camera.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, but you sure you don't do video? And when I finally did press record for that episode, right, and that was the beginning of me now doing video and audio at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just like it was me. Like I wanted I needed it to be perfect. I needed to get the right camera or what. It was just me. It was self doubt more than anything else, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how I was going to be able to how it was going to turn out or whatever it is. But when you finally just like, you know what, kind of understood why he was telling me what he was saying, like you need this is just more content for you to use. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, audio is great, but
Mm-hmm.
video as well can help the podcast, and it has really helped me grow it, and
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate him for for pushing me that day and like, "Yo, listen, you sure you don't do it? And yeah, do it now."
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you kind of adapted to it and just leaned into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how did you know it was time for you to pivot from like corporate life and like
Mm-hmm.
this? This is my calling. This is where I want. This is where I need. This is where I'm needed right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So a couple things were going on in that time. It was in 2018. I had the Wake Up Warrior, went through the challenge, got to understand a lot more about myself, and also all the things that were kind of holding me back from kind of like my future self or what I wanted to accomplish. And I started to kind of go into a reflection because the things that I was learning in corporate America about single points of failure and removing them and processes and value streams and all the stuff that I wish I would have known in my previous businesses, I was starting to understand that maybe everything was happening for a reason. Maybe my previous businesses, I was missing some type of knowledge that I was actually learning in corporate. And then as the business unit that I was working in got acquired for 180 million, I was like, oh. okay, the things that I'm like learning about systems, because there's no way the acquisition would have not happened without what I was doing. I started realizing, holy cow, first off, it's valuable. Second off, I'm not too sure how corporate's going to work when I'm, acquired. You never really know what's going to happen. And it got me to start thinking about, what if I just had to package everything up? What if the learnings from my previous businesses were packaged up, and then the learning from corporate was packaged up into a method that I could help other people that might be the previous version of me? And that's the start. And there was multiple things that were happening. So in 2019, the acquisition was happening. I formed Niche and Control and started working consulting on the side. And I was at a place where I was thinking consulting, I was just going to work as a contractor, but then COVID happened, and my second child, my daughter, was born April 1st, 2020, which is nuts. If anybody knows what that date is, that was the day that everything started switching. And so we went into the hospital to deliver, no masks. The next
Wow.
day, everyone masked. So it was like a crazy kind of switch. We had also moved like 3 weeks before into a different place. And so we were literally like, I was kind of like, everything just got me focused solely on, let's build this method, let's build this business, which is really, I think it ultimately was the catalyst, because the environment was changing. I was changing, everything was changing. So I was like, all right, now is the time to lean in. So yeah.
And no, it's crazy because that the podcast I launched, bro, that March 30th, April, like because of COVID, it was
Yeah.
like I was furloughed from work. I was home.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, all right, what am I gonna? I have this equipment. I had purchased a little podcasting studio from Amazon for like $160. The year before, like
Mm-hmm.
2019, I had purchased this equipment and I had it
Mm-hmm.
in the house, and I'm like, I'm home. I'm not doing anything. Like, okay, the wife was still going to work, so I'm like, oh well, let me finally put this to work, and it was
Mm-hmm.
a 7-minute episode, and with each episode, it just grew, and
Mm-hmm.
and 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 it evolved into what it is now. Because when I first started, I wasn't even an interview based podcast. It was
Mm-hmm.
me talking about the frustrations of being furloughed and everything that was
Mm-hmm.
going on. It was the 2020 elections and the madness of that, and the George
Mm-hmm.
Floyd situation. It was just so much going on at that time.
Yeah.
It,
Mm-hmm.
it, it was like my podcast was my escape, right? It was
Yeah.
like it was
Mm-hmm.
my therapy. It was for me to be able to talk and vent my frustrations, and and then I was like, okay, once I got that out of my system, I was like, all right, this is fun, but I think I want to speak to people. So I switched it up
Mm-hmm.
and started interviewing people.
Mm-hmm.
And at first, it was difficult to get guests because I'm not a
Mm-hmm.
celebrity. My podcast is just growing,
Mm-hmm.
but it took me connecting with other people and actually just joining Facebook groups and doing all these different things to the point where now it's like I have a 3, 4 emails daily,
Mm-hmm.
people reaching out, and I'm like, okay, it's something I'm doing something right. If
Yeah.
I've had people reaching out constantly, like I would go from not being able to book anyone to now it's like, all right, I can pick who I want to have on my show. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, all right, yeah, I'll interview you. So it's I've I'm something you was mentioning was like the wins, right? And it
Mm-hmm.
like it wasn't until the last year where I really started appreciating the wins and
Mm-hmm.
the small wins, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so it was that kind of that shift for me last year was appreciating the small wins, and that's what. And since I've really done that shift, like things have really opened up, like more opportunities have come from just that little shift. Just like
Mhm.
I'm gonna appreciate all these, whatever it is. If it's 10 downloads of a whatever it was, it was just, I'm just gonna appreciate those little small moments.
Mhm. It's amazing what gratitude will do for your heart, your soul, and also just stacking the gains.
Mhm.
Because I think that anybody that has a strong enough why, anybody that's committed to doing whatever it takes to have all areas of their life grow or rise or become better or improve, um, they're able to accomplish it, and it comes from that commitment and that ability to just see the gains, because naturally we'll always see the gaps. Just if you focus on the gains, and you can measure progress by looking backwards, these like little tiny things are really important. And Wize, I think that being able to make that shift and focusing on the progress allows you to keep going. You know, another 300 some episodes and another 6 years. Like you just keep on doing it because you're starting to see how it stacks, like
Oh yeah,
compound.
no, it's and I don't see myself stopping, right? Because like when we were talking about systems, I've because at the first year and 2 years, I was ridiculous. It was too much. I was burning myself out, and it wasn't
Hmm.
until I was like, listen, I love podcasting too much, and I really don't want to burn myself out.
Hmm.
Let's scale it back, or let's just really get organized with it. And
Hmm.
since then, it's really been awesome, man. It's really been awesome to be able to
Hmm.
just come and just have these conversations, and then the relationships I've been able to build with the connections that I've made through podcasting, not necessarily the show, just going to Podfest, or
Hmm.
just connecting with other people in Facebook groups, or connecting with them through other groups. And it's like I've like my family has extended so much more now, right? Because a lot of
Hmm.
them are going to be our lifelong friends, because
Hmm.
we've when shout out to my man Jeff. Like, he opened the podcasting theater in Pittsburgh, and I actually went when 2 years ago when he opened it, and was able to be on stage at his theater and for International Podcasting Weekend, and to see him live his dream, and have that experience, and do that. It was awesome, right? And then
Hmm.
that was the first time we had met face to face. Like, we had been friends since 2020, since we started podcasting, but that
Hmm.
was like the first time we had met face to face. We went out to me and my wife went out with him and his wife and his daughters, and we
Hmm.
had an awesome time. And it was like, it's those relationships that I'm so blessed to be able to have them. Like,
Hmm.
I cherish those moments, and I wish everyone could experience the things that I'm experiencing through podcasting.
Hmm.
And it's, you mentioned your why, right? Like, this, my podcast has given me kind of purpose. Like, it's
Hmm.
being able to have these conversations, and impact people's lives, whether it's one person, two people, whatever it is.
Hmm.
To me, that's like the ultimate sign of success for me. Like, to be able to do that, and just feel so much. It's just that feeling you get when you're like, yes, this is what I want to continue to do, and this is the impact that I want to continue to have.
Hmm. I think you found what Dan Sullivan would call your unique ability, dude. It's like what you were born to do, like, and yeah, man, that's good.
So my question to you is, what does success look like to you now?
Hmm. Impact. Yeah, the impact of a million entrepreneurs that into that. Well, let me back up for a second.
Yes.
When I first started out, we're story people. So here we go. So when I was thinking about the impact of niche and control and going through the method and starting to work with Mike and other clients and starting to see results from the method, I started realizing that I could make a significant impact in people's lives. And I got to a certain place where I kind of got capped in the amount of people I could serve doing one-on-one coaching. So I got to a certain place in 2022 where I was making the most money I've ever made in my life. And my wife, of course, comes up to me, bless her soul. She just comes up and like, "Why are you miserable?" And I was like, I think I just did it all over again. And she's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "I just created another job. What the fuck?" And I can't believe I just did this all over again, and I'm teaching everybody else not to do it. And shortly after that kind of realization, I had a very deep meditation and journal, and I got to a place where I was feeling called to impact a million entrepreneurs. And so I had to make a massive change in the business, in hiring, in the structure, in like a bunch of things within niche and control to be able to serve a lot more people. And I went from just serving the 15 people at a time, getting capped off at that, to building the scalable systems and actually implementing the same method that I teach my clients, but actually implementing it for our business to impact as many people as possible. And I started the Leverage for Growth podcast and back in 2023, the beginning of January. And it's funny you talk about the 7-minute episodes because my first ones were the 7-minute episodes, getting consistency. And we've done 270 episodes, and very similar to what you're talking about, Wize, where you build it for a certain period of time, then you make the switch. So we also interview people, and we've had about 70 or so interviews too. And I also wrote the book, The Agency Owner's Guide to Freedom, because I knew that between the podcast and the book, I would start to impact a lot more people without trading time for impact, right? Mm-hmm. And then we started switching into a group mastermind and being able to serve a lot more people. And the structure now allows us to serve tens of thousands of people. So from all of that, I think that it all came down to this impact. I wanted to impact entrepreneurs, and I wanted to actually save people like years of trial and error trying to figure this crap out, because I'm since when I was 20, so I'm 40. So, and then like right around, I was trying to figure out how many years of an entrepreneur I was. I'm like 17 or 18 years of entrepreneurship. And it took me that long because I don't have any family passing it down, or like, I'm not like a trust fund baby or anything, but I had to learn it from trial and error. And if I can impact people and just save them years or even like months of trying to figure it out on their own, and they can just plug into a long-term growth strategy that just works. Oh my gosh, dude, that's what I'm all about.
And that was the reason. At the end of the year, I launched this program to help people launch podcasts, right? Because I've went through the experience, I've gone through the hiccups, and so I was like, you know what? And when I told a friend of mine, she's a coach, she like, okay, send me. How do I? She's like, okay, sign me up. Like, what?
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, sign me up. I was like, okay, cool. And she's been my first client, and we're actually launching her podcast in a couple of weeks. But it was, it was just the fact that someone like because I was just talking to her, and I told her about it. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. And she's like, okay. So here I am, and without hesitation, and to have someone just do that like, okay, that shows me like someone believes in me, like someone's like, she says, I see how you are with your podcast and with what we're, because me and her do a show as well together. And she says, I see how you. She's like, why wouldn't I want to learn from someone who's doing what you're doing, like especially the way you do it? She's like, yeah. She's like, if you're gonna help me avoid all the pitfalls that you went through, why not? She's like, I have no problem paying you to show me how to avoid it. I'm like, okay, awesome.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Being in coaching, consulting, done for you, that type of kind of like work, being able to serve somebody where the person is investing in time savings and not having to figure it out on their own and having some partner in the midst of it. Oh my goodness, if you can find the right one that like knows the thing that you need and then being able to deliver it. Oh, I wish I would have done that in my previous businesses too. And this one I've spent over 100K on like like multiple things to try to figure out, oh, this is the one piece I needed, or this is it. Like, and the investment into yourself is one of the greatest things that a person, especially an entrepreneur, can do.
Oh, it absolutely is. Again, it was me one like for me personally, it was just me wanting to improve because people who tuned in, right, who were listening and commenting on, to me, it was important that I improved on my audio quality
Mhm.
because and my video quality because now people are giving me something very precious, which is their time. And since
Mm.
they're giving me their time, I want to make sure that I improve on what I'm giving them. So
Mhm.
it was a conscious effort on my part to like, yeah, no, I have to improve because again, like when you're receiving messages from friends that you grew up with, like, hey, I heard this episode, thank you, I needed to hear that, like,
Mhm.
or they break down the episode to like with like, yo, this part, and I'm like, oh, okay, like
Yeah,
it's
impact.
those messages that you're like, man, like I didn't realize like people really tuning in. Like
Mhm.
I didn't know like because you don't really I didn't really think about it like that. I didn't when I started this. I didn't think about oh yeah I want this. It was just me venting and then it just grew and morphed into something that now I'm just it's like okay it's like on autopilot.
Mhm. That's the beauty of what's called unconscious competence, where you don't have to think about it anymore because you did it so much.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. But Jesse, this has been awesome, man. This has been great. But now you've come to the part where you get the spotlight and you get to plug away and let everybody know where they can get the book,
Mhm.
website, everything. And I love your background. I love all those everything back there.
Yeah, limitless.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, for anybody that is a founder, specifically a marketing agency owner, I would highly recommend getting the long term growth strategy. It's a leverage for growth method. It's outlined in my book, The Agency Owner's Guide to Freedom. You can get a free copy at nicheincontrol.com/book. So, niche, NICHE INCONTROL.com/book. And it really kind of outlines the freedom of time, the building of systems, the crafting of an offer, filling up the pipeline through client attraction systems, so referral, inbound, and outbound systems, and then also empowering the people to run whole parts of the company so you can focus on growth. That's the book. For anybody that's trying to focus on the offer and wants to make more money and more profit, the Scalable Agency Accelerator is actually our program that is kind of like an introductory program, and it really is focused around value-based pricing and a bunch of other really cool things. If you want to learn more about me, you can go to LinkedIn. That is my most active channel, Jesse P. Gilmore, and put the P in there so you can find me. If you just type into Google Jesse Gilmore, you'll find like Gilmore Girls and stuff. So go ahead, Jesse P. Gilmore. And I'm on podcasts all the time, and I would love to connect with you.
Awesome. Jesse, thank you for this. This was great. I appreciate your time. But don't leave just yet. Let me close out the show. Everything was going to be in the show notes. So everywhere, all the ways they can contact you will definitely be in the show notes. So definitely reach out to Jesse. And again, thank you. This has been awesome, and I appreciate you stopping through and talking with me, man.
Yeah, Wise. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate being on the show.
Thank you. All right, everybody. Another great episode is in the books. It was awesome. If this conversation helped you reset your focus or recommit to your growth, please connect with Jesse P. Gilmore through his work and platforms. Links, like I said, are going to be in the show notes. And if this episode resonated, share it with someone who's quietly doing the work and needs encouragement to keep going. You know how your boy Wize does it. Peace out.